In 2007, underwater archaeologist Dr. Mark Hawley is on a mission in Lake Michigan's Grand Traverse Bay. He's using sonar to scan the lake bed, looking for a ship that sunk years ago but has yet to be found.
One of these discoveries scared scientists so badly they buried the truth for decades. Another one is hiding underwater right now, and almost nobody on Earth knows it exists. Stick with me until the end, because these are 7 true stories of things that were never supposed to be found, things that quietly changed how we understand our own planet. One of them is still sitting down there in the dark, right now, waiting for someone to stumble onto it the way these people did. In 2007, underwater archaeologist Mark Hawley is out on Lake Michigan's Grand Traverse Bay, running sonar sweeps across the lake bed, searching for a shipwreck that has never been found. But as he studies the readings, something massive appears on the screen. It isn't shaped like a hull. It isn't shaped like anything he recognizes. So Hawley puts on his scuba gear, drops into the cold water, and swims down to see for himself. What greets him at the bottom is impossible to ignore. A long, unnaturally straight line of boulders, stretching across otherwise flat, empty sand, like someone drew it with a ruler thousands of years ago. There's no way current or erosion creates a line this clean. Something or someone put it there on purpose thousands of years ago. Hawley follows it, swimming along its length through the dim, silty water, and the line eventually leads him to something even stranger. A wide circle of stones with a steep drop-off right at its edge. When photos surface, people start calling it Lake Michigan Stonehenge, and the comparison holds up. Roughly 2-foot-tall rocks arranged in a near-perfect circle, echoing the famous monument thousands of miles away. Except this one might be even older, possibly 10,000 years old, 5,000 years older than England's Stonehenge. Naturally, theories explode. Maybe it was religious, a sacred gathering place for ancient people watching the stars. But Hawley isn't convinced. He believes the media is missing the real story, because the stone circle isn't the important part. It's the long line of boulders leading up to it that actually matters. For years, Hawley can't prove what it was really for. Then, in 2009, a University of Michigan anthropologist named John O'Shea publishes research on a different Great Lake, Lake Huron, and everything clicks into place. O'Shea finds nearly identical structures underwater there, and his conclusion is chilling. These aren't temples. They're drive lines, ancient hunting structures built by caribou hunters thousands of years ago. Caribou instinctively follow linear formations. So ancient hunters built stone lines stretching for enormous distances, funneling entire herds toward that circular formation, where hunters lay hidden behind the boulders, weapons ready. That steep drop-off wasn't decoration. It was the trap itself, a place where panicked animals had nowhere left to run. Hawley becomes convinced Lake Michigan's structure is exactly the same kind of design, a hunting machine submerged and forgotten for 10,000 years, sitting quietly underwater that thousands of swimmers pass over every single summer without ever knowing what's beneath them. Researchers now suspect there could be dozens more scattered across the floors of the Great Lakes, still waiting to be found. It's 2023, and a British company called Energean is scanning the Mediterranean seafloor, 55 miles off the coast of Israel, searching for new oil and gas deposits. They send a robotic vehicle nearly a mile down into complete darkness, and for a while, the footage is exactly what you'd expect: empty sand, rock, nothing remarkable. Then suddenly the picture changes. The robot's cameras catch a large mound rising from the seafloor, covered in hundreds of objects stacked on top of each other, ceramic urns each a couple of feet tall, layered together like cargo that was simply dropped and abandoned. The Israeli Antiquities Authority is called in, and experts quickly determine this is a shipwreck, beneath which lies the outline of a vessel roughly 40 feet long. Using a specialized robotic arm built to handle fragile artifacts, they managed to lift a few of the urns intact, a mile beneath the surface. Inside, there are still traces of preserved material, possibly oil, agricultural goods, or wine. Testing the contents proves inconclusive, but dating the urns is far more straightforward, and the number stuns everyone on the team, 3,300 years old, making this the oldest deep-water shipwreck ever discovered anywhere on Earth. Whoever captained that ship wasn't hugging the coastline the way most ancient sailors did. There was no shoreline to follow, no landmarks, nothing but open water stretching in every direction across a sea covering more than 1,000,000 square miles, capable of turning violent without warning. The crew would have had to navigate using only the sun and the stars, more than 3,000 years before anyone invented a compass or GPS. If researchers managed to fully excavate the site, it could rewrite our understanding of ancient maritime technology. And it raises an unsettling question. If a ship this old sat undisturbed for over 3,000 years before anyone noticed, how many others are still resting undiscovered in the deep, dark water most of us will never see? Yonaguni Island sits at the westernmost edge of Japan, mostly known among scuba divers for its hammerhead shark sightings. In 1986, a local diver named Kihachiro Aratake is exploring the coastline at 15 feet underwater when something catches his attention. The seafloor doesn't look natural. He swims closer and realizes he's looking at the edge of a much larger formation. Curious, he follows it deeper, and what spreads out beneath him is almost too strange to process. An entire complex of massive stone structures, the largest nearly 80 feet tall and roughly the size of a football field, shaped like a stepped pyramid eerily similar to those built by the Maya, the Aztec, and the Inca, except this one has apparently been sitting underwater for who knows how long. Aratake shares his find with marine geologist Masaaki Kimura, and when Kimura dives the site himself, he comes away just as stunned. The angles are too sharp, the surfaces too flat, the edges too clean and deliberate to be an accident of nature. He starts calling it the Yonaguni Monument, and wonders if it's the remains of a lost civilization, perhaps the mythical kingdom of Mu, a Pacific civilization said to have vanished beneath the waves after catastrophe. The region around Yonaguni is seismically violent, and history backs up the possibility. In April of 1771, an earthquake near this exact coastline triggered one of the deadliest tsunamis ever recorded. Kimura believes something similarly catastrophic could have swallowed an ancient settlement long before recorded history began. But not everyone agrees. Skeptics point out that the local sandstone naturally fractures into straight edges and sharp right angles in a zone this tectonically active, meaning the monument could simply be a dramatic accident of geology. The debate has never been fully settled. Then, in 2024, a group of researchers proposes something far outside mainstream science, that structures like this one might not have been built by humans at all, but by intelligent beings quietly hiding among us, sometimes called cryptoterrestrials. Kimura dismisses the idea outright, but until a full excavation is carried out, the true origin of the Yonaguni Monument remains buried under the weight of the ocean and decades of speculation. It's just before Christmas in 1938 in East London, South Africa, and museum curator Marjorie Courtney Latimer is digging through a fisherman friend's daily catch, searching for interesting specimens for her small natural history museum. She sifts through piles of unremarkable sea creatures, and then something stops her cold. A 5-foot-long fish, an electric, almost unnatural shade of blue, with 4 fins that look disturbingly like limbs. The fisherman, 30 years on the water, has never seen anything like it. Marjorie is determined to identify it, but the one expert who could is away for the holidays, and the sun is already fading the fish from blue to gray. Desperate not to lose it, she rushes it to a local taxidermist, the only way to preserve it before it deteriorates. 8 weeks later, the expert returns, takes one look at the preserved specimen, and is completely floored. This species was thought to have gone extinct 65 million years ago, wiped out alongside the dinosaurs. It's a coelacanth, a living fossil swimming through Earth's oceans this entire time while the world assumed it had vanished. Over the following decades, researchers find hundreds more and discover something remarkable about how it moves. Instead of swimming with tail motion like most fish, the coelacanth paddles its front and back fins, almost as though it's walking through the water. Some scientists believe this fish is a direct evolutionary link to the first vertebrates that ever crawled onto land, meaning the coelacanth could be an ancestor of every land animal that followed, horses, cats, and even humans. To this day, Marjorie's discovery is considered one of the greatest zoological finds of the century, and if she hadn't rushed to preserve that fish, This entire chapter of evolutionary history might have simply ended up as someone's Christmas dinner. As dawn breaks over a small Danish village, a crowd gathers on the beach around something that washed ashore overnight, unlike anything they've ever seen. The body is massive and almost formless, with 2 enormous cloudy eyes, a hard curved beak, and 10 long arms lined with hooked tooth-like structures. To the villagers, there's only one explanation: the kraken, the legendary sea monster said to crush ships and drag crews into a watery grave. The carcass begins to rot, so fishermen slice off pieces for bait and bury the rest. But one villager keeps a souvenir: the creature's beak. 3 years later, that beak reaches Norwegian scientist Peter Steenstrup, already familiar with kraken legends. He notices an unmistakable resemblance to a squid's beak. Squids use their beaks to crush prey, and the eyewitness descriptions line up disturbingly well with known squid anatomy: massive eyes, exactly 10 limbs, hooked structures inside the suckers. Steenstrup announces a new species, Archaeologists, the giant squid, pulling the kraken out of folklore and into science. But skepticism lingers. Is one second-hand beak enough to prove a sea monster exists? The debate settles for good in 1873, in Portugal Cove, Newfoundland, when 2 fishermen and a young boy spot something large and unidentifiable floating in the water. They hook it, and it roars to life, charging the boat and slinging a tentacle over the side. The boy hacks off a portion of the arm with a hatchet before the creature vanishes. They bring the 19-foot tentacle to a local reverend interested in biology. Weeks later, another crew hauls in an entire giant squid tangled in their nets. The reverend buys it for $10 and documents it in photographs, the first complete specimen ever recovered. For the first time in recorded history, humanity has undeniable, physical proof that the kraken was never just a myth. It was real the entire time, quietly patrolling the deep, and there are likely creatures like it still drifting through the ocean today, completely unseen by anyone. Pavel Efimov is trudging along a frozen riverbank in Yakutia, Siberia, searching for mammoth ivory. He's about to give up for the day when something catches his eye, a clump of fur poking out of the ice. He rushes over and starts digging. This is clearly not a tusk. As he chips away the ice, a massive severed head emerges, at first looking like a dog, but closer inspection reveals unmistakable wolf features, on a scale that doesn't match anything alive today. The specimen is remarkably well preserved, and its size makes Efimov think of the extinct dire wolf, gone for roughly 10,000 years. Dire wolves grew up to 6 feet long and could weigh nearly 175 pounds, roughly the size of a grown man but far more powerful, with a bite strong enough to bring down mastodons and bison. Efimov contacts the Republic of Saka Academy of Sciences, and a biologist there is visibly stunned examining the head for the first time. The skull alone measures 16 inches, dramatically larger than any modern wolf on record. The fur is so intact the biologist assumes the animal died recently. Carbon dating proves otherwise. The specimen is roughly 40,000 years old. And while dire wolves did roam parts of North America in that era, none had ever been documented in this region of Siberia. After further testing, researchers determined this is a rarer species, a Pleistocene wolf that once hunted massive Ice Age megafauna. It's the first fully grown, well-preserved specimen of this species ever recovered, offering an unprecedented look at a predator larger and more dangerous than anyone believed, frozen for 40,000 years until one man's failed search for ivory brought it back into the light. In 1965, NASA launches a project to map the surface of the Earth from orbit using satellite cameras. Before trusting the technology, they need a reliable way to confirm the images are accurate, so they choose Yellowstone as a testing site, thanks to its dramatic mix of geysers, hot springs, and natural pools. Leading the ground survey is geologist Bob Christensen, who also collects rock samples for carbon dating. Those samples reveal something unexpected. Much of Yellowstone's rock is rhyolite, which only forms through volcanic eruptions, but there are no active volcanoes anywhere in the park. Yet the evidence doesn't lie. The landscape is clearly the product of massive eruptions over the last 2 million years. Christensen initially theorizes Yellowstone sits atop an ancient, long-dormant volcanic mountain chain. Then, in 1972, NASA's completed satellite mapping data finally arrives, and Christensen's original assumption is shattered by what the infrared imagery reveals. This isn't a chain of separate, long-dead volcanoes at all. It's a single, enormous supervolcano, one of the largest ever identified on Earth. Its most powerful eruption, roughly 2 million years ago, launched as much as 600 cubic miles of molten rock and debris into the atmosphere, roughly 2,500 times more powerful than Mount St. Helens. Even more unsettling, Christensen discovers that despite lying dormant for 500,000 years, molten lava is still actively flowing beneath the surface right now. In 2022, research published in the journal Science reveals the magma chambers underneath Yellowstone are filling faster than previously believed. Combined with more than 3,000 earthquakes every year, some scientists now speculate this dormant giant may eventually be building toward another eruption, one that could block sunlight across the western United States for decades, triggering widespread famine and economic collapse. Yellowstone's supervolcano has stayed silent for over 500,000 years, and right now, all anyone can really do is hope that silence holds. Because beneath the boardwalks where tourists snap photos of bubbling hot springs, one of the most dangerous forces on the entire planet is still very much alive.